Hello and welcome to Portals to the Past. I'm your host, Will Hickox of the Watkins Museum of History. Portals to the Past is a series of interviews with historical figures significant to the border region. This series is a partnership between Humanities Kansas, Freedom's Frontier National Heritage Area, and the Watkins Museum of History. Today, through a miracle of technology, we are able to travel backward in time to the 1920s and interview a distinguished older gentleman, Tom Bass. Mr. Bass has a truly interesting and inspiring personal story. He emerged from enslavement in Missouri to become a world-renowned horse trainer in the Kansas City area. But I'll let Mr. Bass tell his story. So we encourage you, the audience members, to get involved by posting questions for our guest in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Please use only the Q&A feature and not the chat feature. We may not have time to address all questions, but we'll certainly do our best. And for those who haven't registered or are unable to tune in to this live event, I'll let you know that the video will soon be available on the Watkins Museum Facebook page and YouTube channel. So with that, I would like to invite Mr. Bass to speak. And so first of all, just welcome Mr. Bass and thank you for joining us today.
It's an honor and a pleasure there, Will. Yes.
So I wonder if we could start off by having you tell us about your background and some of the challenges you faced growing up enslaved in Missouri.
Well, I was brought up in this world by my mother, Cornelia Gray, around about 1859 on the Bass Hayden plantation in Boone County, Missouri. I was born at a time where the birth of Negro boys was of little importance in this society, you might say. And I was my dad, my father was the young master, William Bass. And so at the time he had other children. It was, but my mom was in her teens, so she had to tend to the whims of Mr. Bass's wife. Now these were what you call these peculiar times of slavery, and so I didn't really get the chance to really get to know and establish a relationship much. My mama was away up at the house, attending Miss Margaret's whims. That was his wife. She had other children also. So I was raised by my paternal grandparents, Presley and Eliza Gray. And I took to the equine. I feel like the horses and we really understood one another, the abuses and the hardships that would go on. And they listened well. And so if you want to make a friend with someone, I would say the good Lord gave you two of these, one of these. Which one you think you should know use the most? So I remember, of course, you might call them these step siblings didn't really get on so very well, and there was a lot of challenges, you might say. I remember one. They would come up and come down, and there was a lot of name calling and whatnot there. My grandpapa used to always tell me, he says, there's more than one way to fight a battle so much there. You can use a lot of these which you have strapped on your arms. Most importantly is that, how do you use your wits? Yeah. And it says basically, and I would hang around with the animals like that, especially with the equine. My grandmother, Eliza, she would always tell me, she said, I don't want you hanging around them 1,000-pound beasts. I was so small, I could literally walk under them animals. I've been sitting on man since I was no larger than a horsefly. And people used to call me crazy because I said I could talk to horses and they know me both. Well, I remember one day there was some carrying on going on with the other siblings there, my brothers and sisters, and I came up and I was in tears. My grandpappy said, what you do? Hush your crying now. Here's what you should do. You do what you do best and let your actions speak loud at that. Get yourself all fancied up there. Clean yourself up and scrub off all that mud. Put your fine coveralls on there. Your best riding clothes. You get back on down that old horse there, that mule that you've been talking, Mr. Potts. They call him the names of that old booger. You can't ride, booger boy. What you doing out here? You think you know? I did what my grandfather did. I got myself all shined up and spit. I went up there and I cleaned old parts of that old mule. They looking, what's going on? Because I'm over there on the side of the stable of the riding area, the field there. And I get on there, and me, that mule, we have a good old time. I said, they want to see how good I am. They want to see a booger ride. Well, I'm going to show them a booger ride. And that's what we did. And we rode and we just had fun. Next thing you know, I start to canter backwards. I'm on a rack, and they're going, I don't believe it. That's what you do. You don't have to spend time arguing what you do. Just find what the good Lord did you to do, and you do it. You do your very best, because folks gonna talk about you. They don't understand a lot. What you have to do is is what's important, what you say to yourself. And as the good Lord would say in the good book, like your faith without works is dead. So you got to show some good works. Pretty soon I look at my talent as a way as a key to open up and allow someone into a peek into your life and your life as well. And then see what we can come together about that. But yeah, there were a lot of challenges, you might call them that, with folk. And I'm proud to say I had a lot of squires, though. I've been called a lot of names. I've been called a lot of harsh names. I've been called a lot of good names, too. You said the high-headed horse, they say. Yeah, the horse whisperer of the wind. But I'm proud to say I had a lot of what you folks call squires. You may not know what a squire is, some of you. But basically, a squire is someone that assists the knight or a rider in his journey or ride in life. And we folk, we can't ride without a squire, because one never rides alone in the arena of life. I'm proud to be a squire to many good folk. Many good folk, white and black, have been squires to me. Indeed.
That's wonderful. Wow. So, Mr. Bass, you've given us a lot of your early history here and how you developed an interest in horses. I wonder, how did you become free?
Well, it was during the time right after the Civil War that knocked a few things around. And, of course, the word went out that, that we're Negroes can go out and fare out in life in the way they can there and live your freedom, whatever that comes to be. I'm fortunate to be able to have the tutelage of Grandpappy. Well, he was working over there at the Ringo Hotel in Mexico, Missouri. And I got my first job through him. Yeah. And he was working the Ringo hack, taking passengers from the train stations all up to the hotel. And so I got a job working with him there, and I became later on, word goes out, I'm around about in my late teens, so I'm working with, because I had experience there over at the farm. But it was more like it was a natural progression. I took the horses, and that's where my strengths lie. One of my squires is my grandpapa. So later on, he introduced me and I got a chance to work with a fellow by the name of Joseph Potts. They heard word about that, what Bass Plantation was, and how I was working with them, keeping up the equine with the Mexico horse, the hotel. So in Mexico, Missouri, I got a job working with the Mexico Horse Sales Company, Cyrus Clark and Joseph Potts. That's where reputation came. Now Cyrus did not really was too keen to have a hire on his staff with his partner Joseph Potts. He didn't want to hire a colored boy. I proved my mettle though, and that's one thing about it. There, you provide a service, and you do your best. My grandpapa used to say, "You do your best. You do a job. You do it right. You don't dare do it at all." So I proved my mettle, and I had tasks working up from this humble stable boy. I was a farrier. That's a sport that specializes in the hooves and the cleaning and trimming, and also working with the horseshoes and fitting them, feeding and watering and mucking out the barns, whatnot. And then I got a reputation of being able to pair up and assist in the sales with the horses and animals because I knew how to talk to them. I knew what they each were all about, the personalities. Now, let me ask you this, and you may not understand horses, but you know, my good man, you look like you have a lot of good horse sense. I'm talking about you, most on saying, and I don't take that as something rude. That's a compliment. Horses understand each other. They understand someone if you're ornery, you got a heart of gold. You know, like there's something that goes on too. Some of you may love cats. Cats pick their masters. You know, you got to understand the relationship. Folks will come around and put me in charge, and Joseph Potts, well, the co-owner, he decided to realize that fella right here, young Tom, he's started putting me in charge of people will come and want him into what's the best fit for them, for horses to sell. And they would also give me what they call encouragements or roles they written off, you know, so I would happen to be able to train them, whatnot. And it really wasn't much about training them. You just be your friend, listen to them as well. And so I was a part of that outfit for a number of years, and that's why I got my first professional riding and competition experience like that, working at the Mexico Horse Sales Company with Joseph Potts, which was also one of my good squires as well. I had a lot of folk didn't like me. I really didn't care much about so much. I was focused upon being a coach to all the wonderful squires, I call them the horse and equine friends I had. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, how did you grow this early experience with horses into such a profitable and distinguished career?
Well, you gotta have a love for what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And I love horses, and that's where your best advantage is. You also understand it's a service to people, other folks as well. I listened a lot, and I learned a lot. And my grandfather used to always tell me, "Get you some schooling, boy." Like Presley was actually one of the first Negroes that opened up a school around Boone County. Yeah, he was a schoolmaster, and but he would say, "Get you some schooling." I'm not a college graduate myself there, and then I'm not a fancy speech maker, but he would say, "Get you some schooling, learn some kind of mother wit, because folks would do you harshly. So you do good at what you do." I remember I was working up on the Bass Hayden plantation, and I was working up there at the stable, and I remember Lawrence Bass. That was Mr. Bass's cousin, come around there, and he said, "You just about as sharp as any white fella that I ever know." And I remember this old bay he had a kind of a tick, strange tick in his head, would move shape every now and then violently there. And he talked about, I inquired about it. So I'm always keen about what people, I also just watch too. You learn a lot. I don't know everything, so what I know, I'm going to find out. I just listen about that, but I'm going to be inquisitive. But he said he took this animal, this horse, to all the big city vetting doctors all across Denver, Colorado, and whatnot. And but they couldn't solve the problem. Well, I say, look like that bay got a bad spot on his mouth. And I took him and took the animal, and come a little closer, and I managed to get his mouth open. I ran my fingers very gently along the side of the gum line there, and moaning in pain. He said, "Well, Daddy boy, I was a young Bone County boy like you, know so much about them horses, and them big city doctors couldn't figure it out." I said, "Well, what been my observation here, Mr. Lawrence, is that they don't tell you to rest up your that animal's mouth off that bit for about a month. See, they can't sell much medicine that way." Well, he gave me and planted the idea of one day opening up my own stable and liveries business, and that's why I took that to heart. That's why I ended up in Kansas City, working along with the board of the Kansas City, Missouri Fire Department Advisory Board, and I was around there at present day Westport, and I took that dream to heart as well. And I went at the brief time I lived up here in Kansas City. So that's what you do. You got to find your best what you do, and you'll find. You ask the good Lord of what way you can do to serve. Many squires have been kings, queens, presidents, Calvin Coolidge and Teddy Theodore Roosevelt, whatnot. Many folk have actually come to my advice as well. That's all I was wanting to do with that. They in turn have been a squire to me. That's just one example like that of service.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. So I was struck by your mentioning that you were on the Kansas City Fire Department Advisory Board. Is that correct? Could you tell us more about that?
Well, some folks in your time may not understand, how does a horseman and fire department have what to do? Well, back in them times, there was a time where the fire wagons were pulled by horses, the big tanks they would use, and they had specialized horses and equipment. And I want to give credit also another squire to Chief George Hay, fire department at that time, the fire chief of the Kansas City, Missouri fire department. And Kansas City had one of the finest fire departments and fire horses and wagons in the world like that. And they would have these special competitions with fire wagons, and the horses had to be specially trained and very fast, very strong to pull those 1,000-pound wagons and whatnot. And at the time, Kansas City was developing its inaugural stages of the department, developing special techniques of firefighting. And it's always, every generation has some way to do something better. You call it advancement. You evolve. Well, they were going to go to Europe and secure some of these horses and also the equipment and study it and send Chief George Hale. And he was a very innovative individual. I suggested, as far as a fundraising idea, it wasn't really nothing I considered it, but this is what I know. Created a horse show. And I put up most of the prize money and the financing of the inaugural stages of it in my own pocket. Kansas City Bank and Trust Company put up the first prize money. And I wanted this horse show to be the very best, premier. I had a few friends come along and assist me. And we had it at a tent somewhere at Fairmount Park, way down Kansas City. It went on a few years and it moved to bigger places. And later on, when I retired, it became this saddle horse show exposition became what you now know as the American Royal Saddle Horse Show, that component. And I just wanted to be able to be champion somebody like Chief Hale and the fine work they've done. And as well, what can I do, folks? I hear folks all the time, well, I can't do nothing. Do what you can do, and I know horses. So I decided, let me take some creative idea and be able to do something to help someone else. And it grew into what we know today, what you know.
That's incredible. So you've already done some of this, but I wonder if you could explain to us some of the innovations and the inventions that you made working with saddle horses.
Well, there was one invention I would say that, and I never patented it.
Hmm.
Wanted to be a gift to all the world. That was a special bit. I named it the Bass Bit, and it was they were for young colts, for colts they were in training and developing, and the bits that they had at the time just wasn't working right. It would cause a lot of injury and pain. It's just like you don't have, say, you may need a special shoes or something to fit your arches correctly. And one size don't always fit all. So that's why I decided to create this special bit, the Bass Bit, as well. And I didn't want a lot of the horses to be abused, whatnot. And there was a lot of techniques that were going on out there. But I didn't want to patent it because I wanted to be a gift for all the horses of the world. And there were a lot of folks, though. I'm not trying to knock them. I just don't believe. I've never raised a fist or use a club in order to get one of my get an animal trained or properly maneuvered or whatnot. I hardly ever had to use my voice. It comes from the heart, you have to see. Yeah. Some folks would take they had techniques by running animals into barbed wire fences. I did not appreciate it, and then I was not into using spurs to rake the animal like that. It's like I'm a coach of an athlete. You want to get the best out of you. Are you a parent, Mr. Will?
No, I am not, sir.
Yeah, but I know you look a good uncle, though. Like,
Yeah.
But some folks out there may be parents, you know. You have to, every child is different, so uniquely the same, but so different. You want to get the best out of that child. Child understands what you really love them and really care about them. So you're going to be sometimes a little tough love, but you don't abuse them. And you're going to get the best out of it. And what I do is I find each special individual had its own unique style. And especially in this thing called equine ballet that I would do as well. That's what I specialized in, the sport. And it was what you call a white male-dominated sport. Teddy Roosevelt said once, and he says, "I appreciate you for being such a ruddy character to stand up to all of that." But many folk had many different horrible techniques. And I consider it very abusive. And because they got feelings too. And I can feel it. Some folks call me plumb crazy. Yeah. But I wanted to bring out the best in them and let them shine in their own individual style and way. Yeah. That's what I just merely is. I'm just a mentor and a coach.
That's amazing. Now, I'm struck by this concept of the equine ballet. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I wonder if you could describe paint a picture in our heads of what that looks like.
Well, I've been known to call me, I've been called many names. I've been also the creator, the innovator, the master of the 5-gate saddle horse. And gate is just basically a special a way that a horse would move, but not there. You got your walk, and you got your trot, and your canter, yeah. And the rack with each side of the legs would come down at the same time, the foot as they would move, just the way they move. And then you had the slow rack. But now, equine ballet simply is, I remember one of my good athletes, Columbus, this beautiful gray gelding. And he showed it to William Buffalo Bill Cody. You may know him in his Wild West show. But Columbus showed him out like that, made him look good in his suit. Well, I remember Columbus, I raised him from a coat. Raised him from a coat. And Columbus would, or like say of a Bell Beach, another one of my friends right there. I'll give you an example how Bell would actually will show off. Stand up in the middle of a parade on both hind legs. I'm riding by horseback, but twirl around. And then drop down on all fours before bowing. Then raise up with one hoof and wave to the audience. The horses would, there was a Miss Rex would prance like she riding. Judges would say she was like riding on borrowed glass, just prance, real, head up high. So real graceful, like a ballerina. That's the best way I can describe it as well. And each animal, each horse had their own style as well too. They a way as we carry out and demonstrate those five basic of gaits, those five gaits. But the ways they would show out, I always like to read them show out there and how they all have a style. It's just like, say you're a basketball player, football player, or anybody, you have a certain style. You have the same techniques, but they may vary a lot, the way you demonstrate them out there. So that's what they were. I hope that gives you a little idea like that. Yeah, equine ballet is. And the Greek name equine, it basically translates to horse. For some of you don't know, equine, yeah.
Well, you certainly painted a picture in our heads, Mr. Bass, of your graceful dance with the equines. And back in my time, we have this idea of a horse whisperer as someone who's a genius with horses, and it really sounds like you are one of the original or an early horse whisperer. So I'm just amazed by what you're able to accomplish with horses.
Well, I'm probably sure that I wasn't maybe the original horse whisperer, but I had my own good conversations. I said, well, yeah, it's just it's mostly a feeling as well. Yeah, it's a feeling. You become very telepathic, you might say, but you can feel it. And you do that with your own animals like that as well, your own pets. Your dogs, your cats, or some folk may have a pet lizard or something like that, but you kind of feel when something's wrong. Well, something's right. Or they kind of alert you as well too, as well. And you got something in your time called these service animals. Mm-hmm. And I look at like that, how they can be able to connect and bring up the spirit of a person and vice versa as well. You can learn a lot from God's creatures. They teach you a lot. They've taught me as well too. Yeah. I'm just merely the coach. They kept me young.
Indeed. So you mentioned conversations with your horses, but what about conversations with other people? You mentioned Theodore Roosevelt, but could you tell us some stories about some of the famous and important people you've met and worked with during your career?
I remember, not to mention Joseph Potts there once. We was up in Chicago. And that's the first story about how these squires, I call them, a man that only gave me an opportunity to perform in a public arena, being my first competition in the Mexico Horse Sales Company exposition. We also were in Chicago. I remember after an exposition, I'm signing autographs with some folks and just having a good conversation after the competition exposition. And there's a fella, and I don't really take too kind to a lot of journalists so much. You have to discern them. A lot of them just take your words out of context and use them to term their own personal vendettas or whatnot. I'm there with good folk, and this one fella, it's the first time I would, what you may call, be baited. And he calls out and says, "Say, boy," hear this crowd, this voice. "Say, boy, how come you got the name of the man that invented the bass bit? Hey, son, did your master invent the bass bit? Or are you just some uppity Negro that's just trying to take credit for something?" Well, I remember what my grandpa, President Gray, told me, and about more than one way to fight a battle. And I knew what was coming on. I knew how much it was at stake for me to lose, as well as for other folks is out there too. You are not alone so much. You don't ride alone in the arena of life. And so what happened, I put my feet, it's in my pocket, and I dug my fist deep, and I thought about all those messages. I thought about how the most important muscle is up here between your ears, and all the stories and the lessons I learned from all my folk who taught me about converse and integrity and business practices. And I realized the world might be looking at me all. So I gathered my thoughts, took a deep breath, and I said, well, sir, because the crowd had parted like the Red Sea. There he was, and I spied him in his eyes. I didn't back down. I calmly said, sternly, calmly, I said, sir, I got my first riding lesson from a master named Bass. He was my father. But as far as the bass bit is mine. And I named it Bass Bit. Well, here comes Joseph Potts out of nowhere. He says, that's right. I hear another voice. That's Joseph Potts. That's right. And he did not want to patent it because he wanted it to be a gift for all the horses of the world. He didn't want to profit off that. And if you got something to say about that, sir, you can step right in right now, and we can settle man problems right now, me and you, but never touch Tom Bass. Right then and there, I felt that I had the assurance and security of someone that actually supported me and was my squire. I knew another thing that you talk about Colonel Charles Wheeler, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I remember one incident. We were after one of the programs or one of the competitions, and a bunch of us fellas, they got together and said, Tom, let's go to dinner there. So we were going out there as a group. We're getting close to this one here little restaurant here. And I could see the sign over there. And I knew what it said, what it meant. You know, because of my skin color, no Negroes allowed. You know, and that's sure what happened. I got kind of agitated and nervous, but the group kept going on, and I didn't want to say nothing about it like that. Colonel Wheeler was up in the front of there, and then suddenly he said, we began to walk right at the edge of the door. The owner stopped. He pointed me out and said, you go around to the back. Matter of fact, don't even come here at all. You know, your kind's not allowed here. Rest of y'all come on in. Well, Colonel Wheeler says, you know, as far as I'm concerned, he looked at me, Tom, you don't look like a Negro to me. And so I guess whatever is good for you is good for me. By golly, we're going to go in here and have some fun because we all sick. And they pushed me all up inside out there, pushed the man out the way. I had to go. You see, I felt like I did. I was called to be there because, after all, I had promised I was going to take care of dinner and pick up the check that evening. So I remember there was another film, the Queen Victoria. By the way, I got to also talk about the Vanderbilt family. They were the first family, the first people, the good, fine folk, very astute individuals in society. They're the ones that put up the prize to sponsor me to be the first Negro to ever ride in competition in Madison Square Garden. First Black man to ever do. And they supported me, my squires. But I talk about the Queen Victoria. I remember me and Bell Beach. I'm riding. One of her emissaries came from the Queen of England. He came and they saw, representing the Queen, and they saw us and me and Bell performing, and it gave us a special invitation by order of the Queen to come and to perform in her Diamond Jubilee celebration. However, me and bell, we had to turn it down. And for a very good reason, because I used to hear stories about Lawrence Bass. That's another fella, you know, Mr. William Bass. My daddy's cousin used to tell me stories of how he used to be a cowboy and on the cattle trails, and he was a merchant, a sea merchant on the high seas. And one time a storm rose up and broke the ship in two, it capsized, and they had to cling on for dear life on the mast wood while beating off a man-eating shark. I thought about that story because, you see, when Queen Victoria, she had, now her daughter was real young there, but when she gave us that invitation, she understood that we had to basically decline the offer, because between these here United States, London, England, there's a large body of water. Some of you call it the pond. And I'm thinking about Lawrence Bass, and I don't want to get out of sight and I'm near a tree. I don't have to be fighting off some man-eating shark or something like that. But eventually she came and visited us, Queen Maria of Romania as well. And I got also my other squires, Art and Jimmy Simmons, the Simmons family in Mexico, Missouri. Lula Long Combs, the Grand Dame of the American Royal, and her father, R.A. Combs, was a big lumber baron there. And I think you got an area somewhere up there. I remember something later on, Kansas City way because of the family names. Yeah, but she was a person who would come to my house, and when I was up here in Kansas City, and give riding lessons to. And she would, one of those, a very short, stout woman, an animal lover and a good gem of heart. She would have these big hacks as big as a flower garden, and she would ride on these carriages, racing around the track as well. Maybe 4, 5, 6 horses or so, and she'd control them and guide them as well, all around. I remember another fellow. There's too many folks. You talk about a fellow, Will Rogers, celebrated columnist, and you would come up to the house of me and Angie, my wife, and she would, and he would tell stories and entertain road trips when he come to visit. I guess he's performing for supper. Fine man, fine gentleman there. I also gotta give, and I did not, now more folks think I was a cowboy. I was not a cowboy. That's a totally different thing. I was with they call it the high school equine of sport, equine ballet. But I give him credit and respect for many other Black cowboys and cowgirls, for especially the hardship they had to endure. And that's Mr. Bill Pickett. I didn't really know much about this thing. Created this sport called Bulldog, and I think they do a little different now, more humane back than he did. But he said he created that idea from a dream. And a little short fella, not this high, so me. But a lot of folks, including in my sport, if you of color, you're Black, you're a Negro, you could not compete along with a lot of white riders. I remember there was one fella who did not want to put out a petition that I feel very uncomfortable riding along with that fella called Tom Bass, where there's a fella named John Hook, one of the most celebrated horsemen in Missouri. And he said, you know, when he got that petition came to him, he started looking at all the names, a list of other Black horsemen and Tom Bass, and he took out his pen and said, look here, you know, I'm gonna save you the trouble. If you really knew who Tom Bass really was, the integrity that he holds, you really knew who he was, you would not be doing this. So I'm gonna save you the trouble and scratch his name off. They had to get John's name on there in order to get credibility. After that, Well, that petition never saw the light of day. So my squires, I'm proud to be able to have so many. We can go on all day. I'm blessed for the good Lord, but gave me this opportunity. But one last people, of course, my brother Jesse and my wife Angie of 40 years of matrimony. She saw a lot of my ups as well as my downs, mostly my downs. And you're going to fall off. I had a lot of downs there, but she was right there coaching me on. Like I said, one never rides alone in the arena of life. You got to have a squire. And hopefully your spouse, your mate, can be one of your best squires. And so giving an honor to my wife, Angie, and the many other squires that helped me to go along in this ride of life. And there is no better medicine on a druggy shelf than a good ride on the back of a fine horse. Now, you could be like my son Inman said once to me. He said, I don't care for much horses for it, Papa. I don't like horses. You may not, I know some folk who really don't care about it. But I told you one thing about it. I can tell if you got a horse sense or not. You may not like horses, but you got some horse sense. You got a good horse. And whatever your ride may be a teacher. But like you, Brother Will, you're a good historian. Some folks may be, they can whip up some stuff in a good supper. You're a chef. Whatever your ride may be, you do it right because you find the love. Because you're going to be serving folk. And they're going to feel that love. It may sound kind of wonky. Well, not that, but this is no flat duty. But it's the truth. But you're going to make a mistake. If you're a chef, you're a cook, you're a baker, many cakes will fall. You will fall. But you find out what you did. Shake your noggin back together, pick yourself up and dust yourself off, and then you climb back up on your ride. Yeah. I remember there was my grandma, Eliza Great. She would sing me this little song whenever I felt afraid and had trouble going to sleep at night. She would sing, hush, little child, springtime, hush, little child, springtime, hush, little child, springtime, soon we're going home. Ride your chariot, springtime. Ride your chariot, springtime. Mount your chariot, springtime. Soon going home. Hope you find that peace in your home too, hiding from your heart, in your heart. Yeah. That's just a few of the folk that have been squires in my life that have helped me out as well. Black people and white people, just good people. Yeah. And there's a few honorable folk that actually they get to know you. They see your gift. It's a key to open up your life and realize we all the same. That's what we do. To be able to serve and give love. And whatever you do good. I don't mean to start preaching on you like that.
I understand, Mr. Bass. Well, these are some beautiful stories you've told us about your squires and your family members. Another question from the audience is, to get back to the subject of horses, do you have any favorite horse of the many you've worked with?
Some of those ones I named, Bell Beach, Columbus, the great Rex McDonald, the world champion. As well, yeah, and he's buried out there in Mexico, Missouri, as well. They had him right there, the Audrain County Saddle Horse Museum. Got a lot of great friends out that way, and Rex is buried there. I remember my first horse, my first ride I had. Like I said, I've been sitting on horses since I was knee high to grasshopper like that. I remember though, Mr. Williams, first time, We were on an old horse called Helen McGregor, old beautiful black mare. And if you ever been on a roller coaster, to me, that was a wonderful experience. I'm about 4 or 5 years old, and I'm on top. I feel like I'm sitting on top of the world, and I'm going up and down, going across many acres, over the hills. The wind is blowing in my face and through my ears. I'm digging my fingers, clutching, holding on, and my fingers are just clutching all into the soft mane. And it seems like she was talking to me. And I could smell that old heaty sweat. And it was like she was talking to me like, you're going to fly today. We're going to have some fun. And I'm like on a roller coaster. I don't dare let my hands go, but I'm hanging on. I'm kind of scared, but then again, I feel excited. To me, it was a calling. I wanted more of this. And that's the feel. Like I said, there's no better medicine on a druggy ship than the good ride on the back of a fine horse. That was my first experience on Helen McGregor. I got so many that I've also have raised and trained for other folk as well, too. Yeah, Columbus and Bell Beach and many Rex McDonald, Helen, and there were just a few of those that stand out. Miss Rex, that was another, that stand out in my, I would call my students, my champions. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, Mr. Bass, I'd like to sum up our conversation by just saying you've shared some amazing tales from your life with us and a lot of inspiring stories. And I just want to thank you very much for joining us today.
It's been an honor and pleasure to be here and through this, the operation of this fine new technology. And that's, like I said earlier, every generation's got something to evolve to, something better way of doing it as well. But never forget your basics, where your foundations. You always stay humble. But it's been a pleasure to be able to, all the wonderful people, Denise and Susan, everybody, and you, Mr. Wheeler, to be able to share these stories. And I just hope that I've done something to be able to inspire someone to be able to continue to ride. And it doesn't matter if you ride, it's like someone else or whatnot. You don't pay no mind what they ride. Tend to yourself. You know, and your ride may not be like theirs, may not be smooth at all. But you know one thing about it, you can tell the tale. At least you can say that you did the ride, because you're going to ride. But the question is how good you want to ride is up to you. And at least you know one thing: you can live to tell the tale and say, I was there and I enjoyed the ride. Yeah.
Indeed, indeed. Well, just thank you again, Mr. Bass, for giving us this amazing presentation. And I'd like to transition to the final part of today's event. I'd like to introduce the man who has brought Tom Bass alive for us today, John Anderson. So hello, John. Welcome to the program.
Thank you.
There he is.
It's been a pleasure.
So, John, I know people are going to be interested to hear this. What is your personal connection to Tom Bass?
And that's the great thing about history, and some of the many individuals that I share, storytellers and cultural historians and reenactors. In the process of doing this program, it's been about 12 years or so, 12, 13 years going back. And I had a cousin of mine, a late cousin that passed away not long ago. And she had came up and told me the story. She said, you know, you're related to Tom Bass. Around near October, so I was doing it in a library. I said, really? The story of Tom Bass always called me and intrigued me. And I had, it wasn't about a horse story. It was about a story of a champion, a person who was, and I always felt connected. I love horses myself. Don't get a chance to ride. I get a lot of students always ask me, do you ride a horse? I said, yeah, but not right now. I just came on a horse. I got about 150 some horses underneath the vehicle, the hood of that vehicle. But she told me about Tom Bass, and I had another cousin. We got to talking. She drew me a diagram of the family. I had another cousin sent me a family tree about how this interrelated there. Got a chance about 3 or 4 years ago to go to a family reunion in Columbia. My mom, I have a lot of cousins, were both born there. I have a lot of family members in Columbia, Missouri, Boone County area. And got a chance to meet a side of the family of that Bass family that I never would have met before. So history, telling the story, opens up a lot of doors like, wow, I didn't know that. Wow, really? And I tell people, I tell students a lot to ask questions. You never know who you're related to. And I get a lot of people come up to me and say, don't you know, hearing your story, I even had a cousin said, you know, we related, really, you know, and start talking. So I have that too. But to be able to have the opportunity to share that story, to open up those stories, tell those stories. And we have ancestry and all those, what's that, the 23andMe, all the DNA technology to be able to learn more about our family history and go back. And that opens up a door to be a detective, history detective, and say, wow, I didn't know that. And start asking questions. And you'd be surprised who you may find that's someone prominent in your family. So it's a very honor to be able to realize like, wow, I kind of feel Tom's spirit. You know, he was a distant uncle. He's a great, great, great uncle of mine. So that that I never met, and he passed away in 1934. Tom did. He's 75 years old, and but born in Boone County, Missouri, and my mom was born in Boone County, and my aunt was born, and my uncle was there. And so with that side of the family going in, investigating, it's very exciting to be able to share and realize like, wow, now I know why this connection, why I feel this symbiotic relationship. It's because it's for real. It's, you know, and it could be, you know, side how different it is, but still it comes to me, and I feel honored to be able to continue to keep that legacy alive. That for me and my family, and for the world.
Absolutely. So, John, where can people learn more about Tom Bass?
There's a book called Tom Bass by Bill Donnie, which I got a chance to meet the author's daughter. Bill Donnie was the author there, so I got a chance to meet Dawn Downey and her husband Bill a few years ago at the Mexico, Missouri. Give him a shout out to Walk Back in Time. Yes, my good friends out there. It's an annual event where Tom Bass's hometown, Mexico. I've had a great opportunity to perform for the Audrain County Saddle Horse Museum, and also in that festival right there as well. And I believe we're going to probably have it again this year, hopefully the COVID situation. But there's a book they have. I think they read the book of the Tom Bass, A Horse Whisperer of the Wind. I believe that's it there. But you can just Google the Tom Bass a book, and that's where I got a lot of it from Bill, who's one of the great biographers of Tom. And I love Google so much. It's a great opportunity to find so much right then and there. So you got the technology, it's just ideal as a guide. Where do you go to it there? So Tom Bass is also honored in is one of the great Missourians great famous Missourians. He has a type of a prominent display. It talks about Tom in the Rotunda, along with Samuel Clemens, you know, Mark Twain, and like the great other Missouri, Thomas Hart Benton of Missouri. Also in Kansas City here, where I reside right now, the George Hale Arena. There's a Tom Bass, a bus that's there, and it's giving Tom this credit for what his contributions were. So you can order that online. I believe they're the Tom Bass Horse Whisperer, or maybe look up Tom Bass the Black Horseman. Just kind of Google that up there, Amazon there or so, or anywhere they find, you know, they offer fine periodicals for your perusal, for your to gain. And so, yeah, that's where I got a lot of newspaper articles as well too, getting into the life of Tom. And he was actually Will Rogers that wrote this one-page. it's might say a eulogy when Tom had passed away. And he said something to the nature of, Tom, if St. Peter had any sense, he would open up those pearly gates and allow you to ride through on horseback the way he wanted it. Yeah. And so a great friend of Tom, of Will Rogers, was that the celebrated columnist and entertainer himself.
Yeah. Well, speaking of art and literature and this kind of thing, tell us, John, about the music video you made about Tom Bass.
It was part of a video I created about a couple of years back. It was just a little slide video, but I wrote a song. It was a ballad called Tom Bass Forever Rides. And it's part of a larger, just one of the pieces I did for my showcase called Songs of the Black Pioneers. And I celebrate some of the accomplishments of some of the individuals we have, like Matthew Henson, the individual African-American along that discoverer of the North Pole, Marshall Major Taylor, the African-American bicycle champion for the United States, first like that. Dr. Mae Jemison, first African-American female to fly on the space shuttle. And so Tom, I decided to write this particular song. It's like a ballad, and kind of gave a little, kind of chronicalizes in brief a little bit about the life of Tom, and have a good friend of mine. I got to give props up to a producer who helped me with the music, Elder Samuel Lattimore, props up there with that piece of music they had, that I co-produced. And the song, it's, I hope it says a lot about Tom and gives you that spirit. I wanted to give the spirit for people as he's writing, as you're writing. And the beginning of it starts up like a heartbeat. Boom, there's a bass line there. And the heartbeat, the life of Tom, his heartbeat, the life still continues to go on. And it simply goes, Tom Bass forever rides on through the gates of it. What's his name? And so I have people in the audience. I say, you know, whatever your ride is, just feel like you're just riding. And I said, even in the program that Tom had said about riding a roller coaster, you know, I like horses. Okay, you still got horse sense. It's good. So be able to take your ride and just enjoy that ride there. And as you're riding along, equine ballet, that fine, beautiful dancer, you know, it's you know, in the wind. And so that's a little bit about what we call this ballad, this tribute to Tom Bass. I wanted to, it's a gift for what his life has meant to me. And having this opportunity is humbly to be able to share his story, his life. And so that's what this song gives you kind of a brief history lesson. You may not know Tom Bass, but hopefully you'll be able to like, wow, I want to know more about that. Or I know that, but I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah. Well, John, I'd like to conclude by asking if you're affiliated with any historical or storytelling groups that we might be interested in hearing about.
One that jumps out at me here is I want to give a lot of credit to the River and Prairie Story Weavers, RAPS, RAP, it's an acronym, River and Prairie Story Weavers. And also they're partnered with on the east side of Missouri, St. Louis, Motel. So RAPS Motel, like that. So that's one way. Find a lot of my historian friends in there, and I have a great opportunity. One of the first entities I got an opportunity to be able to share the story of Tom as well as others, and we're open for encouraging storytellers and people, especially young people, to really get into more of sharing in the oratorical arts as well, and just being able to just keep those stories alive there as well, and especially in a formal presentational aspect. Yeah. So RAPS Motel, I just want to say, you know, thank you guys here for.
All right. Well, just thank you, John, for bringing your distinguished ancestor to us today. This has been an amazing presentation, very inspiring too. So I just want to thank everyone who watched and participated today. Registrants will receive a follow-up email with a survey about Portals to the Past, and filling out the survey will help us immensely to see what we've done well and what we can improve for this long-running program. So thanks, everybody, and we'll see you later.